Made in Abyss was easily my favorite anime that came out last season, and truth be told, it was really the only anime that came out last season that I felt like watching, so I waited till all of them were done, and I just sat down and marathon through this one, and I was actually pretty surprised by this, and I think a lot of people will probably be surprised with my findings in this review here, because generally, looking at the cover of this, it seems like it would be the exact opposite of what I would look for when it comes to watching an anime, and that is actually the truth, because I normally don't go for cute little innocent looking kids on some adventure in this fantasy world, because we all know that fantasy and adventure genres are so saturated with an anime, and it's rare that they do one very well. Now, what originally drew my attention to Made in Abyss was that I did a preseason video talking about all of the other anime that was coming out last season before anything began, and there was just something about the trailer here. The art style to this looks so beautiful, but it wasn't even about that. It's also about the world that they were in, this giant cavern that they have, and they're just going into it, somewhere that nobody's ever came from. It's this huge mystery, and there's different types of monsters and stuff. I just felt like this had the potential to be a really good fantasy adventure series, because when you have a really good fantasy adventure series, they're timeless. They go above and beyond the age range. They also go above and beyond the genre as well. I feel a good fantasy adventure series is really timeless. Take a look at the original Dragon Ball, for example. Sure, that's got elements of action and comedy as well in it, but I feel like certain seasons of it are heavily into fantasy and adventure there as well, and I felt like this could have the potential to be a really good fantasy adventure series. Now, the feeling that I had coming away from all this when I was watching Made in Abyss was that it was a bit of a mixture, a very, very strange mixture between a Ghibli movie and also Blame.
Excuse me, it's pronounced blam after the sound of the gun. No one gives a shit. Shut up.
Two things. First of all, I know the E is there. I just can't get over that. And secondly, I know I probably made a few people's heads spin whenever I made the comparison between Blame and also Made in Abyss here. But I feel like Made in Abyss could potentially be the organic counterpart to the technologically advanced Blame series. And if you don't know about Blame, I have a video talking all about that. Check it out. I'm going to try to remember to put it in the link in the description section below here. But basically, in Blame, you have a character whose body you just don't know a whole lot about, but he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeves. He's got this gun that can really just shoot through anything, and he's traveling upwards in this seemingly infinite technological jungle that he's in there. That's the city that was taken over by machines. And in Made in Abyss, you've got this girl who finds this boy whose body is also a total mystery, and they're heading down in this cavern all the way, and it seems like it could go on forever, and he also has a gun that can shoot through everything as well. And to go even deeper than the surface level comparison between the two, I just felt that my main experience when I was reading the Blame manga was that I didn't know what the world had to offer. It really didn't give you a whole lot of information about that, but what he did when he was creating that manga was that he put just a crazy amount of time into the background, just designing everything. He really went all out there, and it pretty much gives you the experience where every reader of the manga is going to come away with a different idea of what exists within their world outside of basically what happens on the panels there. And I feel like Made in Abyss is practically the same thing as that. I was just absorbed into all of the backgrounds. I was so curious to wonder, oh, what's going to happen if you go deeper. I was thinking about the physics of the cave and everything. They were feeding the information, and I was just soaking it up because I was really interested in the background that they had in the whole setting, just because there was this massive cave, and you had so many different original types of life forms that were down there, and it was just great watching some of these characters. This is even before I get into the story here, but they would have to go around and hunt certain types of animals in order to get one thing to do another thing, and it really just made you feel like there was this deep, everlasting tunnel down there that really had endless possibilities to it. So the story follows Riko, a 12-year-old girl who's a part of an orphanage, and here they train all of the children how to basically go in deeper into this giant tunnel that they have, this giant cave in the middle of their city here, and find artifacts, and then they sell them, and that's actually how they get the funding in order to keep the orphanage basically still in business there. The only thing is you can't take any of these artifacts and sell them for yourself or keep them for yourself. There's actually very strange and awkward punishments that they give you if you do that, but we're gonna talk about that later. So one day Riko is out and she's exploring, she's finding some of these relics in order to sell, and there's a bit of danger there because there's a giant floating snake lizard looking thing that is just floating through the sky, and it's actually very, very dangerous as it would appear. Of course, she gets involved with this because she intends to save her friend there, and she is saved by what appears to be this boy who is also very mysterious as well. His skin is made out of this different type of material, and he's got this strange appearance to him with his hat, and also his hands and feet. They're all made out of metal. So this mysterious boy is given the name of Raghu. He's given the name because he kinda doesn't remember a whole lot, which is part of the big mystery of the series here. I know some people may feel kind of negative towards that because it's one of the characters who's starting off with amnesia, but I feel like in a story like this, it really works because everything here is about this big mystery, because obviously, well, maybe it's not so obvious, but this is how I felt when I was watching the show. Maybe this kid, he's got something going on where he's part of some of the relics or something, and he's coming from deep down in the hole, and he somehow or another managed to make his way up because nobody there seen anything like him. So it was something that was really interesting to see his background throughout the entire series, and I was always wondering about that. So Raghu, not to be mistaken for your favorite brand of pasta sauce, his body actually does a few very unique things. He can stretch his arms out. I don't mean unique across all anime. I mean, he does things that nobody else can do that really make him an asset if you're trying to go down to that hole there. His arms and legs, they can stretch out really far. Of course, he's got that gem in the palm of his hand there, and it just seems like there are computer aspects to him because he'll take his helmet off and put it back on, and there'll be like glowing parts and everything. So his whole body is just a total mystery, and it makes you wonder about it throughout the entire series. So thankfully, they only took a few episodes above ground before taking that leap of faith down into that giant mysterious cave that they had there, but even in the time that they were above ground, it really served to teach us, the viewer, a lot about basically what they know about the cave up to this point, because they have a very limited amount of knowledge about it, which I think is really good because it serves for the characters to actually learn from their own experiences instead of just being given everything in the beginning. But even then, I think there was enough information given to the characters and the viewer that really make us understand basically what we're going to be in for in later episodes, because they talk about how there are different stages to the cave, where each stage, every time you go down a certain amount of feet or whatever, it actually gives you a different calamity. Like you'll be nauseous and you'll have a headache, and there's another stage which will make you just have hallucinations, and you keep going down, you're going to be bleeding out of every hole in your body just because the pressure is too much. So this picture right here, keeping in mind this is a spoiler-free review, this picture is a bit of a gray area here, but I needed to talk about this because I feel like a lot of people have probably already seen this picture or other pictures from this scene in the anime here, and there's a lot of people that are saying that this anime is one of the shows that's basically drama porn, torture porn, or something like that, and it's just one of the shows that takes cute little characters that are innocent and throws them into terrible situations just to force the viewer to feel bad about what's happening here. And I will admit, there are a lot of anime that do that, and I don't like those anime, but I don't think Made in Abyss is one of those shows. But I also feel like a lot of the people who criticize the anime for those reasons would also be people who, if they didn't have any of those problems, they would say that, oh, Made in Abyss, it's just got characters that are face rolling through this cave that just doesn't have any problems, you know, they just go through it easily and nothing bad happens to them. So you really can't please everybody here. But I feel like a lot of the calamities and things that they face here, it's really described early on in the show. I mean, I think even if you were to consider, if you were to go that far deep down into a cave in Earth, you're going to come across certain things. Maybe it'd be pressure, lack of air possibly. Of course, there's going to be so many dangers that would go, even if you were in a cave in real life, or even if you're climbing a mountain, there's going to be lack of oxygen. There's so many dangers which occur, and I don't think the show goes just over the top with that. I don't think that at all. And I want a lot of people to know that, because there are some people out there that I've seen them on Twitter and Discord and various other places that are saying, oh, it's just one of these types of anime, I'll stay away. But don't worry, it's not one of those shows, and I think you should actually try it. So during the adventures of Rico and Raghu, they come across so many problems along their way, whether it being fighting these giant monsters, and there's so many different types of monsters and animals and stuff that they've got to fight and defend themselves from in order to survive down there, and they always require different tactics in order to beat, but they mostly start off with we're screwed, let's run, but first let's try this. And they also have to cook, they've got to hunt in order to cook, they've got to find safe places to sleep, which not always a place that you think is safe is gonna actually be safe there. And of course there are numerous different types of obstacles in their way when they're traversing down this giant cave here. But during this time where they're coming across so many different and unimaginable things down there, they also come across a few other travelers that are down there because, as I said, where their village has the economy that's based off of selling these relics, there's different grades and different tiers of the people that are going down and adventuring down there. So at certain levels you'll find people that actually are living down there. And the great thing about this, so they actually start off their adventure because Riko learns something about her mom. She receives a message, so she thinks her mom's still down there, and she's going to go look for her, and that's a really big mystery about that. So we gotta learn what's the mystery behind your mom, what's the mystery behind you, because she was actually someone that was brought up from the cave, so the whereabouts about her mother are still something that's really unknown. So as they're going through, they're coming across some of the other people that are adventurers down there, and basically they know some of the information about her mom, so they can actually share background information. So you've got Riko, who's learning a lot about her history that she didn't know and we didn't know as the viewer, but we also have Raghu, who is, every time I say his name, I keep thinking about pasta sauce because I made that joke earlier. I should just keep calling him Raghu for the rest of the video here, but he's learning more about his body as well, because he will come across people that will tell him things, but mostly through trial and error when he's trying to fight and save the life of Riko here, because he will learn things about his body, whether it being what he can do with his arms, what that little gem in the center of his hand is capable of doing there, and what are some of the repercussions of him doing something, because it's not always like he's this guardian angel for her and she's never going to have anything happen to her because he's always there to save her. It's not like that, because some of the abilities that he has, he cannot use them forever. So if he uses them, he knows that he's going to have basically a weakness exposed, and I'm not going to get too much into detail about that. So ever since their journey began, I felt like it was just a joyride, and it was really easy to marathon through the entire series here. But I want to talk a bit about the ending here, and keep in mind I'm not going to spoil you and tell you any like major details. I'm going to be vague about certain things here, but we all know that they're going to come across certain calamities as explained within the beginning of the series, because as you continue to go further down, you're going to meet such and such calamities. How they deal with these? They deal with these in very good ways and very realistic ways, I think, because they do things to try and cope with this that in some ways make it worse for the characters than other ways, and I think that's important because the characters are not always, they're not going to be perfect and do everything right the first time. It was basically a trial and error thing, and a lot of some of the circumstances that they came across were life or death, and they needed to act in the moment. And some of the things that they needed to do, like they would have to get something from this animal and get something from that animal. So I thought that it was very interesting to see some of these things here. But the problem that I have with the ending here is that it was coming close to the ending, and I didn't know that this was just going to be a season 1 type thing. And as of right now, I don't see any sort of information about there being a second season for this, but this is a show that is incomplete. And I feel like the last few episodes of this, if I had known that this was going to be a season 2, and if they had already announced, well, hey, we're going to have season 2 next year of this, then I wouldn't think too much about this. But given the history of anime, where they kind of just leave you hanging a lot of times, and it's like 5 years later, there's still no second season, the ending of this anime, or the ending of the first season of this anime, I feel like they could have handled that a little bit better here, because it mostly focuses on this character that they meet during the stage of the cave that they're in. So it focuses on this character, it focuses on that character's backstory and how the character got to be the way that the character is, and it focuses less on the overall journey and the overall goals of the main characters. And keep in mind, I was watching episode 11, 12, 13, and I was just seeing this and I was thinking, hey, this anime is about to end soon, what's going on here? And I felt like if you're just looking at this and you're trying to get the experience of a 12 or 13 episode anime, I feel like you may feel that the ending of this is very anticlimactic, and you're definitely going to want a season 2 of this. Unfortunately, as of right now, as I said, there's really no information regarding the second season of this, but I really do hope they come out with one next year, because I would like to check it out. So I want you to keep in mind that I'm making this review probably 2 weeks after the anime finished, and if you're watching this video 2 years after the anime finished and there's still not a second season, or maybe even 3 years after accurate, then I feel like my recommendation should be taken with a bit more of a grain of salt, because there's a lot of time that they take in this anime, and they explain a lot of things that if there's no second season, then I feel like maybe they wasted their time with a lot of this stuff here, where they describe a lot of the characters that live further down in the cave that they have, and there's all sorts of other things that they explain that are basically alluding to some of the events that would happen in future seasons, and if we never get them, then I feel like my recommendation should be not as positive as it currently is. But there's no way to tell that at this point, because currently it's just an incomplete story. So I think it's important that I address the elephant in the room next, because there's actually another major issue that I have with the story here, and it makes me feel uncomfortable, it makes a lot of other people feel uncomfortable too, and apparently this was a big controversial issue that I didn't know about. I mean, I saw this picture with a bloody face and stuff, and there were a lot of other things that people were talking about that I learned about after watching the anime when I tried to talk about it with other people. So there were several times within this anime that the character Riko, the 12-year-old girl, was actually depicted in the nude. Thankfully, they didn't show anything. They had hair covering, but it made me feel uncomfortable. It made a lot of people in my Patreon Discord, everybody in my Patreon Discord chat, feel uncomfortable. A lot of people in my regular Discord chat. Like I said, it was a controversial thing. I watched some other people's YouTube videos. There are people out there trying to defend this, and there are people out there that are saying, well, it shouldn't be censored, and I will agree that if you do censor this, it makes it look worse than it actually is, but at the same time, I think they shouldn't have added it in the first place, because there are some people who will defend them doing this and saying, well, you know, if you're this age and you're in this context and this circumstance, it's absolutely normal. But at the same time, by that logic, if you're going to see everything that the character sees, do you want to watch them take giant dumps? Because characters take giant dumps from time to time, and thankfully they don't show that in anime, and I don't think they should have shown these moments either. There are things that are just best left off screen, and the moments that these happen in added nothing at all to the story. It was 100% gratuitous. Made in Abyss was produced by Studio Kinema Citrus, who's also known for creating Black Bullet. Now, the thing is, this is also directed by the same guy who directed Black Bullet as well, and a lot of people draw parallels between the two because Black Bullet was one of those types of anime that put kids in terrible situations just to basically force you to feel bad for them. But like I said, I don't really feel that Made in Abyss is one of these shows, but I'd also like to point out that the director also directed the Monster anime as well, which I think is a pretty good show. This was pretty surprising to me because looking at everything else that they've done, I mean, this is probably going to be their flagship title at this point, and it looks absolutely beautiful. I'm surprised that it came from the same people, in all honesty. Of course, for me, the first most important thing would be how they created the world here, because it wouldn't be a very good adventure if the world just wasn't inspiring you to just think about what's further down in that tunnel there. It's just not inspiring you to really get into the adventure that the characters are having, and this anime totally did that. It looked absolutely beautiful. The characters, they did a really great job of just animating the characters' facial expressions and their movements of their body as they're going down into this tunnel here. And I also wanted to talk about some of the monsters here. They had a really good variety of different types of monsters, and then they had some of the different people that were part of their organization that were deeper down in there, and all of them, they had different armor sets, and there were just all sorts of different levels of the environment that the characters went through, and they were all totally different. Really good job in the art department here and also with the animation. I'm going to talk a bit about the sound. Of course, the soundtrack was also really good here, but I want to talk about the sound effects that they use. There's this part that we hear constantly where you've got a Raghu who shoots off his arms and he's able to just bring them out and use them as weapons. He's basically a metal Luffy here, but when he brings them back, you can hear the metal winding back up into his arm and the clang of his hand attaching. It just felt so right for that situation. It was one of those sounds that when you hear it, it's like, is kind of one of those very satisfying sounds that you hear, and just everything in general, from the sounds of the monsters, just the ambient sounds of them being down there in that cave. It was just a great experience overall. And my overall thoughts about this anime, oh, by the way, if you want to watch this in dub, there's no dub yet, so you're going to have to watch it with the Japanese audio here, which they did a great job of doing that. My overall thoughts about this anime is that if you like adventure anime, I feel like I'm mostly partial to this anime because I do like a good fantasy adventure series. And if you like a good fantasy adventure series, then I think you should definitely check out this anime. But keep in mind, when I did that little elephant in a room talk earlier, you are probably going to feel very uncomfortable about certain things here. But I feel like the journey as a whole, I felt like it was an enjoyable experience, even though the ending really wasn't very satisfying for me because it was leading up to season 2. And even though, like I said, the ending, if you're looking for a complete 13 episode experience, you're probably going to be a bit let down with the ending here and how they trail off there. But this is one of those experiences where the ending, it doesn't make or break the show. Most anime aren't like that anyways. It's all about the whole picture here. The ending, I don't think that can make or break a show, in all honesty here. But overall, I do recommend this show. Definitely go ahead and check it out. If you've seen Made in Abyss, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button and also share the video with your friends as well, because that's honestly the only way that this channel can grow at this point, because YouTube will take days to put my videos in people's sub boxes, even if they ever do that. So I really do appreciate it if you share, and also subscribe if you're new to the channel to stay up to date with my anime news, reviews, lists, and discussions. And if you really enjoy these videos and would like to help support the channel, which is totally funded by viewer support, probably like 75-80% funded by viewer support at this point, and it would not exist without your support, then I would ask you to check out the Patreon account, and there we have numerous bonuses there, such as a Patreon Discord chat where we talk once a week and have a discussion, but we also watch anime together several times during the week, and you can be with me live on Twitch when we do that together. And also you get early videos, you can request topics, you can also vote for which anime I review once a month there. So I wanted to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time on Monday with my anime news. I'll see you then, and have an awesome weekend, everybody.